We had a long, nice break. So please give a round of applause for Sami Makkonen from the Qt company.
Good afternoon. It's really great to see so big crowd. Almost full house. There are still some empty spaces in the middle at least. Yeah, as said, I'm working in the Qt company, mainly in the developer experience area. So for example, documentation is an area that I'm looking on daily basis. But I also have the opportunity to think about the future in the role of product management of Qt. And this talk is related to the future of user interfaces, and maybe thinking about what we should do in the Qt so that we meet the expectations for the future user interface development. So topics that I have taken into this talk are the virtual reality and augmented reality. There's a lot of interesting projects and product development happening in that area. And then I have a couple of content production related stuff, 360 degrees imaging and video stuff, and also scanning of the environment and objects as 3D models. And then also one of the things that is changing the world is 3D printing. Then let's look briefly what Qt has to offer and what has been done traditionally with Qt on 3D area, and what are the new stuff that we are bringing into Qt and have in Qt already in creating 3D stuff. So, virtual reality. I don't know how many people have had a chance to try out some of the devices that you see here. So we actually have a really good number of hands. So that's really cool. And the rest that hasn't yet tried, there's actually a Google Cardboard in our booth, so you can test that one and ask from those that have tried. Of course, a lot of the hype is going around the Oculus Rift, which has been kind of in the radar for a longer time already. And of course, Facebook buying Oculus Rift even increased the kind of the highlighting of that technology. But we have seen also Valve coming out with the Steam virtual reality and one product, HTC Vive, in that area. And also Sony is investing a lot in the Morpheus project. And all of these devices are actually quite near into coming into the public releases and publicly available. And of course, we have stuff already available in the lower price range. The Samsung Gear virtual reality headset, which you can use with the mobile phone, and of course the cheap model Google Cardboard has been around already for some time. And of course, offering in all of the price points is really important in a sense that really getting a large adoption for the technologies. For example, Google Cardboard will increase most probably in advertising, so that you buy a product of some kind or go and see a car and you get a Google Cardboard and an application attached to that product. So these technologies will be infused in the larger masses in different ways and of course in different price points. Augmented reality has been around actually for I don't know how many years. I've seen research projects from 20 years ago about the augmented reality. And it has been a promising technology for a long, long time. For example, some years ago, there was a big hype around the mobile devices and augmented reality. But that has kind of cooled down a bit, and those projects have died out. But now there's actually a couple of interesting projects ongoing. Microsoft HoloLens. Actually, Microsoft is having an event as we speak, and most probably they will announce something related to the HoloLens. So I'm eagerly waiting the information. So what's happening around there? And then there's an interesting company called Magic Leap that has gathered a lot of funding, for example, from Google. I think that they have gathered something like $500 million funding for creating a new kind of augmented reality technology. They have been quite silent about what they are doing and what kind of stuff they are developing. But now they are gradually coming out and showcasing some of the use cases that they are developing, and also telling about the technology that they are actually developing. So that's kind of at least they say that that is the kind of the next wave of the augmented reality technology, and it's something that people have never seen before. So eagerly waiting on their public display of their technology and getting it hands to the people that actually can tell about the experiences that they had with the devices. But of course, augmented reality is also present today. For example, head-up displays that are in cars. So that's also augmented reality. And of course, having different kind of glasses with the augmented reality built in is not the only option. So augmenting by drawing different surfaces is possible, also by not using any glasses. Content creation. And that's a really important part of the kind of the virtual reality and the whole 360 UI story. Google Cardboard Jump device is an interesting concept as such, so that you bought, I think it was 16 GoPro cameras, so that you can take 360 degrees videos and images. Of course, not really suitable for everyday use. Nokia also announced a device called Ozo, which is aimed for professional markets. So people creating professionally, for example, videos or images. And what is interesting about the Ozo is that it has the stereoscopic camera, so that it's a 3D effect built in the 360 degrees video. So it's really interesting concept. But in the middle, we have the Ricoh Theta, which is the kind of the low price point version of this. So it's around 300 euros, I think, in MediaMarkt, for example, available at the moment. And they are actually bringing a new device, new version of the device. And that's something that you can actually use in a daily life. It's a device a bit bigger than this one. And you can already use that to, for example, shoot action videos that have a 360 spherical panorama images. Again, here, it's really important to have these technologies available in different price points so that these technologies will become more common. One interesting area is also the 3D scanning. One good example was that when Microsoft announced the Kinect device, the game controller that has a laser scanning feature, and there was a lot of these kind of hacking projects. And one quite popular project area was scanning of objects. So I don't know whether Microsoft kind of figured out that before the launch, but that became hugely popular. And actually the same technologies have been now productized as standalone products just for that purpose. So that, for example, Scanect is an interesting application plus device, so that you can hook up the sensor in an iPad and scan the environment or some object or a person, for example, and create a 3D model out of the scan. And of course, you can combine that with the images that you take and then create also the materials for the 3D models. And one thing that has been popular is to combine that with the 3D printing, so that actually creating these miniature statues of a person. Also, Google has been active in this area. They have been running this project called Tango. It has a lot of different companies and research institutes. And the aim for that project is to create a mobile device that can be used for scanning the environment. And I think that they are actually quite far. They are already distributing the devices for the developers to test. So, what kind of use cases can these technologies be used? For example, Google Classes was a kind of a experiment in augmented reality. And I think that it was also an experiment of the social acceptance side of the augmented reality. And there were cases that people got really angry when people were wearing Google Glasses in public places and, for example, recording a video of the surroundings. And lately, I think that kind of the trend in the use cases that these companies and projects have been showcasing is that the virtual reality and augmented reality is used in a private space. So that the use cases are that you are at home playing games or at workplace doing your daily work by using these devices. And that has been a kind of a interesting change in the use cases that are showcased in this area. Of course, gaming is driving strongly the virtual reality scene, and that's quite natural. But for example, one of my favorite use cases for the virtual reality is actually, for example, the Google Street View. By hooking an Android phone inside the Google Cardboard, going into a place in the world and looking around. It's actually quite natural to do, and it actually brings value to the user experience of using a virtual reality. 360 videos. YouTube has been supporting those already quite a long time. Facebook announced the support something like 2 weeks ago. So it's coming. It's coming to the popular services that we are using daily basis. In the workplaces, we have seen, for example, SpaceX. Elon Musk has been showcasing in the video the tools that they are using in space, in the rocket design for the SpaceX rocket. Autodesk has been demonstrating how you can use their design tools, with, for example, with the Microsoft HoloLens, so that you can actually see the 3D model augmented to your reality. One interesting case that I came across is a company called Matterport Inc. And they have created a custom devices for scanning houses. So it's when selling a house, these guys come and scan the house and create the 3D model automatically so that you can put that to the web pages. And combine that with the virtual reality so you don't even have to go to see the house necessarily. One interesting use case is also the teaching. For example, the Cleveland Clinic and the Case Western Reserve University have showcased the use of HoloLens in teaching. So, for example, the anatomy of a human is more concrete when seen in 3D in teaching. And one interesting showcase is from Mini, presented down here, is the Mini goggles. So how could you use these augmented reality glasses in a car environment? So for example, you can project camera images so that if you're not seeing some part of the environment, so that one can be augmented into your field of view with the augmented reality glasses. And one interesting aspect to the virtual reality and augmented reality is how do you interact with the user interface that is happening in 3D space. Of course, head movement is quite natural. Putting the virtual reality glasses and moving around, spinning your head or spinning yourself around is quite natural. But how do you move forward? How do you pick things or point at things? That's kind of where the problems start. For example, there's a company called Leap Motion that have created a device that can track your hand motion with quite high precision. And there are several other research projects and ongoing R&D projects in this area also. So that having different hand gestures to activate things in the 3D space. But it's interesting to see how this evolves, because of course with the touch user interfaces, people kind of intuitively know all the gestures that they can use to zoom in, zoom out, move around in the touch UI. But how that will happen in the virtual reality, for example. Of course, for example, in gaming also torso tracking is used so that when you move your body, that moves the character in a gaming. So that one can be used also in different kind of use cases and different kind of applications. But there are also specific controllers. For example, here we have the Oculus Rift controller that can be used to interact with the 3D world in the virtual reality. And of course, in some cases, traditional mouses bring the needed precision to the user interaction and can be used quite naturally. And of course, speech is one possibility to interact with the application. And one last thing in the kind of the trends that is happening is the 3D printing. You all know about these things. Some of you might even own one. So they are coming more and more popular. And the development in this area is happening really fast. There's new techniques, new materials coming, and new devices coming every day almost. And of course, the kind of the size of the objects that you already can print is actually quite big. And there's a lot of research also. For example, is it possible to build houses by printing? So there's a lot of interesting happening. And of course, one thing to highlight from this picture is also that there's also the software related. So there's a lot of user interface innovation happening also in the software around the 3D printing, and also standardization of the file formats that are used to be used in the printing side. Okay, so how these all relate to Qt and what Qt has to offer in the 3D area at the moment. Qt has good bindings to the OpenGL. There's a helper classes, and a lot of stuff has been done with Qt around 3D for a long, long time. Some of the leading 3D design tools have been made with Qt. There are several integrations to the existing 3D engines or other technologies providing the 3D content in the application. But of course, OpenGL as such is quite low-level stuff. And in many cases, in many companies, there's a lack of OpenGL knowledge. So it's good if the abstraction level can be increased. And that is where the two new technologies that has been added to the Qt from 5.5 onwards come into the picture. So the new technologies are Canvas3D and Qt 3D. Canvas3D as such is also a low-level API implementation. So it's basically an implementation of the WebGL API, which is used in the browsers mainly. An integration that to the Qt. And as a web technology, the programming language is JavaScript. But of course, in that one, the abstraction level is also quite low. So we have integrated a popular 3D library called three.js to the canvas. And that increases the abstraction level and makes it easier to create applications with 3D UIs. Canvas3D has been in Qt 5.5 already as the final release, and now the 5.6 brings a couple of new features and, of course, a lot of improvements in the internals. So you can use Qt items as a textures for the 3D objects with the 5.6, and also the rendering. For example, creating a transparency 3D layer on top of Qt UI is now supported. So, what is three.js? It's clearly the most popular JavaScript-based WebGL 3D implementation. The project is really active. There's a lot of new features and functionality and bug fixes happening around three.js all the time. And I would claim that it's clearly the most used. If you look at the 3D applications that are running in browsers, in most of the cases, three.js is used as the base technology. And the Canvas 3D port of the three.js is made to for the porting of the applications from web to QML. But of course, you can start new projects, so it's not only for porting existing applications, of course. And what does Qt bring into this picture is, of course, there's a lot of good features. For example, controls are really easy to implement with the QML language. You can create different kind of transition effects and animations to the 3D objects by using the QML functionality. And one thing that is really interesting is using the Qt compiler to compile the JavaScript, the three.js library, and the 3D application that you have developed. And that actually speeds up the loading time of a three.js application quite considerably. And of course, for example, if you are creating applications that you need to package the 3D stuff inside, it's really handy in that use case. For Qt 3D, I'm not actually going into details because Sean Harmer is having the next talk in this room, and he will tell all the internals related to the Qt 3D. But kind of the history is so that there used to be a Qt 3D 1.0 several years ago, but it was seen that it's not really filling the needs of the modern 3D application development, and the Qt 3D 2.0 is a total rewrite of the technology, and that's the reason why it's at the moment in the technology preview phase. So the API is still a bit changing. And then there's also a lightning talk from Laszlo about using GLTF in the embedded and mobile platforms to increase the speed and the efficiency of loading the 3D models. So more details about Qt 3D coming after this talk. So, as a summary, I think that there will be a big change in the user interfaces with the virtual reality and augmented reality. Of course, I'm not stating that it will replace all of the existing technologies. PCs will be there, touch-based devices, mobile devices, tablets will be there. But it's one addition to the technology spectrum and the way that we use the technology and interact with the technology. Of course, it's good for some use cases. Using traditional 3D models in a PC desktop applications, in some cases, and in many cases, is actually more natural. But for some cases, it really brings an added value to be able, for example, to move around in a virtual space or augment different kind of applications to your existing world. And what is also a big change, is the way that the 3D content is created. So the scanning and 360 imaging solutions make it a lot easier to create 3D models out from the existing world. And of course, as a user interface technology, Qt is following the technical development. We are providing new technologies and increasing the abstraction level. Thank you. Any questions at this point? Okay.
What about 3D input devices? Things like Kinect?
Input devices. Yeah, I mentioned briefly that in one of the slides. So there are different kind of input devices, and more are coming all the time. So that, for example, Kinect can be used to track the torso or tracking the hand gestures. And for example, the Steam virtual reality has also this kind of torso tracking, plus they have also controllers that can be used to kind of track the hand movement as well.
All right, guys, on the way out, we have a fancy terminal which can be used to rate the talk. So if you're passing from that exit, maybe you could tell us your opinion on the talk. The next talk will start in about a minute, so, or maybe 3 or 4. Please give a round of applause.